Don't act so delicate. It was just a slap. Pregnant or not, she provoked it. That's what Morven Kicksty, acting president of the Arden Hollow HOA board, said right after she punched my pregnant wife during a courthouse arbitration. Yeah, that actually happened. Picture it. A sunny Tuesday, a sterile courthouse mediation room, and this self-appointed neighborhood tyrant walks across the floor, blazers still buttoned, lips pressed into a smug little line, and sits herself down right in the judge's chair. Not beside it, no, in it. The rest of her board didn't flinch. The judge didn't say a word either. Guess why? Because Garrison Miles, the judge, Morven's ex-son-in-law, the same guy who once helped erase her name from harassment records, was in on it. Today, he just gave her his seat like it was her birthright. But what they didn't know, what Morven never once bothered to consider, was that I helped design the AV capture system in that very courthouse. Every mic overlay, every timestamp trigger, every facial angle cache and scrub prevention flag in that room had my digital fingerprints all over them. That footage? It still pinged straight to my secure drive. And what that system caught that morning, let's just say, if you've ever wondered what happens when someone slaps a pregnant woman in a room built for justice, smiles, and expect to get away with it, you're about to find out who really runs these neighborhoods. My name's Colin Miroth, certified forensic systems specialist, digital evidence chain expert. I don't argue. I extract. Today, I wasn't building evidence for somebody else's trial. I was building my own. We moved to Arden Hollow, chasing quiet after 4 miscarriages. My wife, LRA, needed peace, the kind that doesn't show up in real estate brochures. Historic homes, winding walking paths, legacy gardens, all that. We thought it was safe till Morven saw our application. She hated newcomers, especially young ones. She called our memorial bench a sealed walnut slab, engraved with my late mother's name, a violation of colonial visual integrity. She cited it under some dusty clause from 1974. Then came another citation. Our porch lighting threatened the dusk aesthetic, and a $100 fine for unsanctioned reflective materials, which was just LRA's prenatal hazard cones, doctor's orders, so she wouldn't trip at night. We paid. We appealed. Morven denied it, and when LRA requested a medical exemption, Morven just stamped her as non-compliant. When we refused to remove the bench, she didn't call a clubhouse meeting. She summoned us to a courthouse decorum hearing, citing HOA Clause 8.44c, which lets her rent out civic venues. She brought her whole board, invited Judge Miles to observe. LRA stood up to speak, hands shaking but voice steady. This bench isn't a protest. It's for Sarah, his mother. She mediated in this building. Morven scoffed. And I suppose you're entitled to rewrite community standards? And she stepped forward and hit my wife. No warning, flat palm, open swing, right across LRA's face. The whole room froze. I took half a step, but Judge Miles cleared his throat. Let's not escalate emotions, he mumbled, as if nothing had happened. Morven slid into his chair, legs crossed, arms folded, and flashed that tight little smirk. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke, except me. I glanced up at the camera in the corner. It blinked green. That meant the voiceprint sensor had pinged, the proximity sensor fired, the whole thing logged as a high-intensity event, thermal confirmation and all. That system didn't just record, it verified. And I was the only one in the room who understood what that meant, because I built it. What would you do if someone punched your pregnant wife in a room built for justice, then sat in the judge's chair and smirked? Because that's what happened. We went home. The bench was still there. Sunlight poured over it like nothing had changed. I stood on the curb, keys in hand, staring at that quiet little slab of wood. Felt like it had been waiting for us. LRA didn't say a word. She just walked inside, one hand to her cheek, the other to her belly. Sat slow, disappeared down the hallway, didn't even turn on a light. That's when it hit me. Arden Hollow wasn't a neighborhood. It was a simulation built to favor people like Morven Call, folks with tenure, with names etched into too many committee plaques. Every brick had a signature. None belonged to us. The bench was just the start. The second it showed up, Morven sent her warning. We preserve traditions here, Mr. Miroth. not tributes to people no one remembers. But they remembered Sarah, at least some did. There was a knock that evening. Not polite, not patient. Sharp, rhythmic, no hesitation. It was Joss Weiler, HOA vice chair, clipboard in hand, pretending nothing happened that morning. "We've scheduled a compliance discussion for next week regarding the bench," he said, no eye contact. "If it's removed by Friday, we can likely avoid escalated fines." I stared at him. She hit my wife in a courthouse. Joss blinked. That wasn't under HOA jurisdiction. She sat in the judge's chair. I wasn't looking directly when that occurred. He handed me a printed notice, left it on the porch, and walked away. It read, "Non-compliant structure. Unauthorized memorial. Fine pending. $425 escalating. Third violation in 6 weeks. Cones, lighting, now the bench." But this time I knew what to do. I scanned the notice, added it to a growing folder. Every file had a geotag, timestamp, and voice annotation. My system started cross-referencing board action patterns, scanning the HOA website for language changes. I needed patterns, evidence of abuse, against anyone who ever pushed back. So I walked the blocks, made a list of everyone I'd seen, fined, or whispered about. Young couples, renters, widows, people who didn't plant the right flowers. First stop, Elsie Runold, nearly 90, sharp as wire, paint-stained fingers, yard full of marigolds. Technically illegal, somehow still blooming. "She came for your bench, didn't she?" Elsie asked before I even sat. "She hit my wife today." "I believe it." Elsie went inside, came back with a box of HOA notices, 2 years of color violations, every one time-stamped, Joss's signature. Next was Danver Singh, landscape contractor, cited for unprofessional signage on his own truck. He handed me a citation and a photo. Same board member parked with an unmarked trailer 3 days later. 2 blocks, 3 homes, same abuse. I mapped it, voice logs and all. The system showed overlapping timing, phrases, methods. The abuse wasn't personal. It was systemic. I share my findings quietly with a few neighbors. Morven caught wind, of course. She always did. At the next board hearing, supposedly to review my behavior, the room was full but silent, folding chairs set up in the old carriage house, antique clocks frozen in time. 5 neighbors came. No one looked me in the eye. Morven opened with a painted-on smile. "We're here to reinforce the harmony that Arden Hollow has always stood for." She didn't mention the courthouse, or the slap, or the fact that Judge Miles was now under state review, something I knew because I'd gotten the confirmation email from the AG's ethics office that morning. My footage was flagged for review. Morven accused me of aggressive correspondence, non-compliance, circulation of inflammatory material. That last one was about the map I'd started sharing, the one showing citations clustered by home age and ownership. Joss handed out a stack of emails, screenshots, selective enforcement. At the table, Son Hollis, board secretary, barely looked up, but I watched his hand slip a sheet of paper from his binder, press it to the underside of the table. I recognized the letterhead, an old version from before Morven's time. I knew exactly what it was, the original approval for our bench. Before Morven, the board secretary had signed off on it under Community Health Clause 6.4a. She'd voided it without record, but Son had kept the record. That night, an envelope slipped under my door. No name, no return address. Inside, the stamped, dated approval letter. And a note, careful handwriting, "Don't let them win." The next morning, Morven doubled the fine, tacked a letter to our bench for everyone to see. $850. Enforcement action pending. Red ink bled through the page. LRA looked at the letter, didn't touch it. "Don't let them win," she whispered, then went inside. Even with Sin's letter, I needed more. 3 hours later, a text. "We need to talk." Daventrell, once the HOA's legal compliance officer, vanished after 2 meetings. We met at the municipal records office, neutral ground. He looked worn out. "She hit your wife," he said, no small talk. I saw it on a leaked clip. "Judge Miles is under investigation." I nodded. "She'll use the charter as a weapon till someone takes it away." He slid over a single contractor agreement. Morven had signed off, not the board, on a private enforcement firm, Westgate Ordnance Solutions. The board never voted. She'd buried the budget as aesthetic remediation. That was the crack: improper financial authorization, unauthorized enforcement. That night, I was back in the courthouse, records annex, using my old contractor credentials. Pulled up event tag 4BX 771. Mediation room, timestamp for the slap. The footage had everything: synced audio, 2 angles, biometric overlays. The system flagged the event as contact, unprovoked, aggression confirmed. No tampering, no edits. I exported the evidence, encrypted the chain logs, watermarked everything. Even if Morven's crew claimed manipulation, the chain would shut it down. Back home, I uploaded everything, messaged the AG's office. This meets chain of custody and sensor verification. Event 4BX 771. Certified. Next morning, Dana Crow from the ethics office called. Footage meets standard. We're initiating a misconduct request today. You just put 3 careers in jeopardy, Ken. I was ready. Morven thought the footage would vanish. The slap would fade like all her other abuse. But not this time. That evening, another knock, 3 quiet taps. Sinhalis. He came in, sat at my table, unrolled the original HOA budget filings and the memo where Morven had buried the contractor fees. I was at a funeral, he said, when the books changed. I didn't understand it. Not then. I didn't stop the hearing. But I can help now. He signed a statement, sworn testimony that the contract was never board approved. Why now? I asked. Because my wife saw the footage and asked if I'd be proud explaining it to my grandson one day. With Sen's testimony, Davin's memo, the certified footage, I had a case. Not rumors, verified, signed evidence. Morven had always expected silence. She never planned for documentation. The next HOA forum was scheduled, supposedly for community enrichment. I burned 2 copies of the footage, printed out the citation map, laminated Sen's statement. The binder didn't feel like paper. It felt like armor. That night, as people filed in, the atmosphere was electric. People whispered, not about what I might do, but what I already had. Morven entered last, commanding as always, but nobody clapped. I stood up. Point of order. She tried to shut me down. I laid out the handbook. Any homeowner can request an evidentiary hearing. I have video evidence of assault, unauthorized budget manipulation, and sworn statements. She tried to bluff, but everyone knew. 10 minutes, she said. I played the video. The slap echoed. Silence. Then the map of targeted fines, the budget logs, Sen's statement. This isn't about the bench, I said. It's about how Arden Hollow turned into a machine for targeted control. Sun stood. Everything in my statement is true. I failed before. I won't fail again. People started clapping. The silence was broken. The room had changed. A petition to recall Morven, 31 signatures, enough for a vote of no confidence. She retaliated, shoved a bogus violation notice in our mailbox, signed by the same illegal contractor. We didn't react. I scanned it, filed it, called the AG's office. She's escalating, illegally, I told Dana. That's textbook overreach, she agreed. Sun called. Special session Thursday. Joss is chairing, not Morven. 2 days to prepare. I spent the time building a timeline wall. Every action, every hearing, every fine. By Thursday, my case was airtight. At the session, every chair was filled. Joss led. I submitted documents, budget logs, contract, video, sworn statements. This isn't about me, I said, or my wife, or the bench. It's about everyone fined for planting the wrong flowers, or putting up lights, or parking wrong. It's about control disguised as community. Morven tried to defend herself. I've served this community for 6 years. This is sabotage, but nobody believed her anymore. The vote was called, 42-5 for removal. Morven left before the results were announced. The next morning, the rain fell, gentle and steady. The HOA bulletin board, once filled with her laminated rules, sat empty. At 7:03 a.m., the official email arrived. Morven Costa removed as acting president, effective immediately. Interim leadership to be determined. For the first time, the signature at the bottom was Joss's full name. Transparency had a face. I didn't wake LRA right away. She needed the peace for once. I stepped outside. The bench was still there, untouched, rain pooling in the letters of my mother's name. Neighbors nodded. No one needed to say a word. The silence was different now. Something had broken, and it wasn't coming back. That night, I archived the evidence packet, this one labeled Oversight Year 1. Not going backward. At dusk, LRA and I walked for the first time in weeks. No urgent letters. No HOA car creeping by. Just wet pavement and the sound of our feet. She sat on the bench, brushed her hand along the armrest. Still here, she whispered. Always will be. We sat together a long while, didn't need to speak. What started as a slap in a courthouse didn't end there. It ended here, soaked wood under gray sky, in a neighborhood finally ready to look in the mirror. Morven was gone. The charter was changing. In 3 weeks, we'd bring our daughter home, into something we'd fought for and finally earned. So if you've been through this, if someone in power abused your trust, hid behind rules, hurt the people you love, don't stay quiet. Document everything. Piece by piece, hold the truth up to the light. Even the loudest HOA president can't outrun it. And before you go, tell me, what would you do if justice was left in your hands? Drop your story below. Let's talk about what real justice looks like and who actually gets to define it. 22.